It started with a slap that echoed down the school hallway like a gunshot. Everyone turned. The quiet girl Elena stood there, face tilted slightly to the side, her cheek red from the impact. Her long black hair hung like a curtain over one shoulder, shielding her expression, but not her eyes. Her eyes had changed. They were no longer filled with fear. They were focused, cold, ready. The hallway froze. Students staring, unsure of what would happen next. No one expected her to move. For months, maybe years, Elena had been the silent shadow in the halls. Teachers barely remembered her name. Students forgot she existed except for a certain group of boys who didn't need a reason to make someone suffer. And now one of them, Josh Miller, the school's golden athlete with more arrogance than empathy, was holding his hand, confused, maybe even proud of what he had done. He had no idea what was coming. The girl no one noticed, Elena Reyes, was the type of student who drifted from class to class like a ghost. She didn't speak unless spoken to. She kept her head down. She ate lunch alone near the library stairs. People whispered about her, called her weird, quiet, creepy. What they didn't know was that Elena wasn't born quiet. She had once been a loud, laughing, joyful child. But trauma has a way of silencing even the brightest voices. When her father passed in a violent car crash and her mother withdrew into grief and addiction, Elena learned that sometimes silence was safer than attention. At school, she became invisible. But some people hate silence. They see it as weakness. And bullies, they hunt weakness. Josh and his group made her life hell. Books slapped from her hands. Snide remarks under their breath. Why so quiet? Freak. Smile once in a while. Corpse girl. But Elena never reacted. Not because she was afraid, but because she was preparing. The breaking point, it was a Monday morning. The bell had just rung. Elena had stayed behind in biology to double-check her test answers. As she stepped into the hallway, Josh was waiting with his usual posse. Derek, Mateo, and Chris. They boxed her in. You deaf or just rude? Josh asked. You ignore me again and I might get offended. Elena tried to walk past. That's when it happened. The slap came hard, out of nowhere. Josh's palm cracked against her cheek, sending her bag tumbling, and her hair whipping to the side. And for the first time, Elena reacted. Not with words, not with tears, with precision. The snap had happened so fast, no one could stop her. Not even Josh. Elena grabbed his wrist with her left hand, stepped inside his guard, twisted his elbow outward with terrifying control, and then drove her shoulder into the joint with calculated force. There was a sickening pop followed by a scream. Josh dropped to the floor, his body curling around the now dislocated elbow. His pride shattered along with it. His friends didn't move. They didn't know how. They'd never seen him cry before. And Elena, she didn't run. She didn't even flinch. She picked up her bag, calmly stepped over his whimpering body, and walked toward her next class. When the teacher arrived, aftermath, the incident spread through the school like wildfire. Some students called it violent, others called it justice. But everyone had an opinion now, and no one ignored Elena anymore. The administration launched an investigation. Elena was pulled into meetings with counselors, the principal, even the police. But something unexpected happened. Security footage showed months of silent bullying, her locker vandalized, her being cornered and mocked. One teacher, Mrs. Langford, stood up for her. She said, "What you saw was not an attack. It was a reaction, and it was long overdue." Elena wasn't expelled. Josh, however, was suspended, his scholarship status under review. What no one knew was that Elena had been training in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu for 2 years. Her uncle, a quiet martial arts instructor, had taught her discipline, control, and self-defense. She hadn't wanted to hurt anyone, but she also wasn't going to let herself be broken. Finding her voice after the incident, students began approaching her. Some apologized. Some thanked her. Others shared their own stories of being bullied. In silence, for the first time, Elena spoke up in class, in group projects, even at school board meetings. She helped form a peer-led self-defense and empowerment club for students who felt unseen and unheard. She still wasn't the loudest in the room, but now, when she spoke, people listened. The message: Elena's story wasn't about revenge. It wasn't about violence. It was about survival, about finding strength in silence, about the moment when standing still is no longer an option. Bullies count on fear, but when fear turns into courage, they lose their power. And when a quiet girl stands up not just for herself, but for every unseen soul around her, the world listens. Because sometimes, silence isn't weakness. Sometimes, it's the calm before the storm.